Hi, I'm Andy Bachi, and I am here today with Hule Goddard and Rick Durrance of Wilmore Anglican Church in the shack where I've been living for 2 days now as part of the Good Giving Challenge and as part of just giving a representation of a real issue across our country. Across the globe, and that is housing insecurities. Folks that aren't always certain where they're going to lay their head, and the challenges of having a warm, safe, dry place to live. And it's something that Adventure Serve seeks to tackle with our church groups. But this week we've been having dialogues with other folks that address these issues as well. The conversation today is being sponsored by Red River Gorge Cabin Rentals and the agency, Paul Campbell's real estate agency up in Lexington. Both those organizations have helped to make these shack conversations happen. So first, maybe just a quick intro of who you guys are, and maybe just real quickly, any connections? What are the connections with Adventure Serve Ministries?
Fantastic. I'm Hule Goddard. I'm the pastor, one of the pastors at Wilmore Anglican Church. I've been in and around Wilmore for about 20 years in different installments. It's a great privilege to have Andy and Adventure Serve as a part of our church. The organization isn't per se, but we feel so many of our people, so many of the students and young people in our church meet the Lord in a rich way there, have an opportunity to be enriched in the kind of service and outdoor experience that Adventure Serve gives them. It is just a joy for us to be in the orbit of this ministry and to have Andy as a part of our congregation, Katie and his children as well, of course.
Thank you.
I'm Rick Durrance. I'm the associate pastor at Wilmore Anglican Church, and have had some time in the past here in Wilmore, and have returned the past year and a half to serve with Hule at the church. Adventure Serve has been a wonderful ministry that I have known about from a distance, having served for a long time out in California, but being back here close up and being able to actually even see my own son be involved this past summer as an intern there at Adventure Serve just helped me to see kind of the insides a little bit more of what's going on. And the ministry has great integrity. It's a genuine service, a ministry. It's a place where young people can learn and grow, whether it's for a week or 2 weeks, or whether it's for an entire summer. Truly be helped to learn and to grow and to understand and encounter different aspects, perhaps even of the world and of their own local community that, for better or worse, they have perhaps been sheltered from or kept from, and help to see and understand there's very little here to fear, and a lot to love, and a lot to be aware of and to be mindful of. So I'm really grateful for Adventure Serve and what it's meant to my own family personally.
Yep. Thank you. And we've definitely benefited from both of your involvements with Adventure Serve and Wilmore Anglicans, and your son Will Durance on the high school apprenticeship program this last summer, him jumping in on that. You guys have both done a lot of youth ministry, and Adventure Serve works with a lot of youth groups, and but not specifically just through Adventure Serve, but just what is it? Where do you see the connection points between youth ministry and caring for folks on the margins?
Rick, why don't you speak to that first?
Okay. Even later this week, our youth group is going to be involved in another outreach.
You're going to do a homeless for which
at the Hope Center
right?
in Lexington.
Packing food.
Yes,
excellent.
and just being part of a ministry that's already at work. We're just joining in and kind of being some hands and feet for them.
That's an important way to do it, to support agencies that already know what to do for the homeless. Yeah.
Very much. In my experience, similar to a little bit of what I was saying already, is that I think it's extremely important for youth to be involved in healthy and appropriate ways with all the various levels of difficulty that we encounter. And I think far too often the way we are oftentimes raised, the way we raise our children, is to protect them. And there's a right and appropriate aspect of protection that we need as parents and as adults for our children. But sometimes that it can have an inoculating sort of effect that really numbs us to a whole lot of stuff that's going on in the world that we need to be helped, especially as we move into adolescence and early adulthood. We need to be helped to see and help to encounter and help to engage as part of our own maturity, as part of our own growing. And so in my youth group experience, we would regularly have opportunities for our students to be involved in service and outreach, doing the best we could for a week at a time or a couple weeks at a time, sometimes for longer periods than that, to really just be a part of an organization that was serving in Chicago or in the Appalachians, here in Eastern Kentucky, as well as certainly internationally in the third world countries and what have you.
As a youth minister and as two experienced youth ministers, what are some strategies to prepare youth for doing that?
Well, I mean, to me, you've got to, number one, within the youth ministry, within the church, it's just got to be talked about. It's got to be something that's on your minds and on your hearts, and something that you as adults, and this is a big and important piece, that this is not just a good thing for our kids to do, it's an important thing for us to do. For us to model, for us to live. And so for it to be on our minds, for it to be on our hearts, for it to be something that we actually naturally do, just simply as adults. An example would be that in a former church that I served, our church would regularly go to Tijuana. I served in Southern California, and we would do a monthly trip to Tijuana just to serve in a ministry there for a day. And over the course of time, whenever I felt my kids were old enough, usually around the age of 10, the first time I'd take them with me. They take them out of school for a day and just give them a hands-on experience. A strategy for me has always just been let them experience and just encounter this in a safe and in a wise way, but also in just I want my children to see and to know that the world that they live in is not the way the rest of the world lives, and that we need to grow in our hearts and in our awareness of really what is reality for the large majority of the world. Yeah. So just my strategy is just to experience it and to lead as adults, to lead as parents, say, come along with me, join me as I go on this trip, join me as I go to this service area. It
sounds like in that experience, and a lot of it might just be observing, just coming
exactly.
alongside. Yeah. You're not being asked yet to do anything.
Right.
You're just taking it in. And I'm an adult that's kind of helping you feel about it and think about it, help you feel safe in the midst of it. And this idea of the majority world as well.
Very much.
You know, I read, I forget the author when Helping Hurts, but he often talks about the majority world that doesn't have clean water or that doesn't have adequate shelter regularly, and this recognition that these things we take advantage of are a rare thing in many places of the globe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Andy, I think, and I'm not sure I had this sort of big picture, where are we going in the end in my younger days, but I know at least for the last 20 years, the end game is to help our young people, to help the people in our congregation, adults and youth, children even, to simply see other people as they see their family, as they see their friends, as they see their neighbors, that we want to build relationships with people, and wherever they are in need, to love them. And part of that love, if someone is homeless, is to help them find a place they could call home if they have a sort of housing insecurity, to support them, to add security. But chiefly it is to build a relationship with people that's appropriate. We can't be best friends with every person in the world, but we wouldn't, I don't think many of us, Christian or not Christian, would be comfortable, even if a friend is an acquaintance, leaving them homeless, leaving them hungry, leaving them insecure in their medical care or their housing or any other way, certainly not spiritually insecure. We would be very quick to try to give ourselves to them in their relationship with God. So that really is the end game. So what I've found is so helpful in youth ministry and with children as well is we can give young people, children, adults would fit this as easily. They are emerging into adulthood. They are baby adults. When it's first kiss time, first time to drive, first time as an adult to experience the presence and love of God, the first time to see in many ways the realities of the world, good, bad, and ugly. And if we can step them then at first into temporary, full immersion experiences, whether that's going with dad and mom or going with the congregation or going with someone in the family, to be with people who this is their real world, this is their life. But have as our goal to get to know that person, to care for that person, to let their story for our lives to be open to their lives and their story, to at least potentially be a part of our story, a friendship, a traveling alongside each other. So do that in short-term ways so that our end game is that through the grace of God and through discipline and through modeling, that will become a part of who they are. They won't see people in the two-thirds world or the majority world needing our sort of patronage and our help and, bless their hearts. We need to go help these poor people.
Right.
But to really see them as brothers and sisters,
Absolutely.
and to come to the realization that this is we're all subject to this.
Yep.
Two things I love about what you've just said. One is just the work of teaching young people to love family and friends fully, but then to widen that to be able to love strangers who are in need at that same level
Yes.
of dignity,
Yes.
respect, appreciation from a distance. Maybe you're not the
Right.
best friend, but a recognition of the created image of God
That's
in
right.
them. And then the other thing, I love this concept of this is a time of first kiss and first drive and first moments and just that, and there's just this beautiful narrative that comes in our young lives, but that also your first recognition of need
That's right.
can also be a beautiful, powerful moment. And with that, combining not just your first recognition of need, but your first recognition that you had the potential
That's right.
as another brother and sister in Christ to do something for somebody's
Exactly.
need.
That's right, Andy.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I would say, just to add to the end game, is I believe what will really change the world in these arenas of need is when we do actually build friendships all across socioeconomic lines, cultural lines, any other lines. I've had the privilege of being friends with people in a little village in the Dominican Republic
Yes.
for 30 years, and it became very mutual.
All right.
In our opportunity and giftedness that we had in terms of money, and certain abilities that we were empowered with. We could go to them, they couldn't come to us. But what they had to give us, we needed. I really came to see in many ways that we had the greater deprivation in terms of we had wedded our faith to sort of prosperity thinking. We had wedded our faith to an entitlement. We had created sort of an arrogant approach to people, kind of the have-nots of the world, and reckoned that it was
detriment to our faith.
That's right.
Detriment to our health, our emotional health.
And in some ways, it was a saving help, because in the end, a relationship with Jesus will manifest itself. I think that's what he's saying. It will manifest itself in meeting Jesus in everyone, but it will especially manifest itself by loving like God loves. Where there's the greatest need, you're going to find the magnitude of God's love and presence moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. And Scripture attests to that from Genesis to Revelation.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, number one, Hule's influence in my life 30 years ago when I first met with him and served with him was huge in that way. Experiences with the Dominican Republic, experiences with more local outreaches, just watching and observing you see people. And it's helped me over the years. One of the things I love about the Gospels is that there are these moments in all the Gospels where the writer, whether it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, especially, talk about Jesus seeing people.
Yeah.
He sees them, and there's a communication in that more than just, I recognize you, but it was like he sees them for who they are. They're not a project, they're not a cause, they're not someone to be avoided. He sees a human being. There's an immense dignity with which he treats everyone he encounters, and that includes the rich young ruler as much as it does the woman caught in adultery. He looked at them and loved them, and that ability, that in-game ability to just really see each and every one of us as the created in the image of God people that we are, and I tell you, over time, it's had an effect on me, and I'm grateful for the ways in which, I've been able to see and experience a greater freedom in my own faith, and I hope in the pastoral ministry that I have done and in the churches that we have served, to just not put up as many. There's always obstacles, there's always blind spots,
Yes.
there's always places where I fall
Yes.
terribly short, but just see people, just see them.
That's the secret,
and it's been wonderful.
And that's what Christ did. And just how do we let people around us know they are seen
Yes.
by us and by Christ? I see you.
Try to look people in the eye even when you can't help them. Just look, at least just look at them in the eye and just, I'm sorry, I can't help you today, but rather than just avoid or walk away or what have you, but I see you.
I am a young Anglican. I'm going to ask an Anglican question. Often
Yes.
the term parish is used. And I think Wilmore Anglican was very specific in keeping the Wilmore name in that. And what does that mean, this idea of parish, and how does that connect to this conversation?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I do need to qualify that I have not studied the concept of parish and how it evolves and what would be its most essential characteristics or identity. But I can say how we understand it in Wilmore, and I think it is generally a historic understanding, that your parish is every man, woman, and child that lives, in our case, we try to draw a 5-mile circle around our church, which pretty much takes in most of Wilmore and the outlying parts of Wilmore. And every man, woman, and child in that 5 miles is our parish. Now, we join with other churches who have some of those people as a part of their church, There's part of that parish, every man, woman, and child in that area. That's part of our church. But we reckon that for the next 100 years, that every man, woman, and child in the 5-mile circle around Wilmore, Kentucky is ours to love, to pray for. If they don't know Jesus, to
whether they're members, whether they've ever walked in the door, they are physically in
our parish. And we could not contain everyone, so we must work with other churches.
Yes.
Right. But we reckon that to lead them to Christ, to take care of their family needs, to see that they have adequate housing, to see that they are cared for, is our responsibility. It is completely impossible. Yeah. But it is our responsibility nonetheless. Yeah. So it keeps us in a posture that, God, we need your help even to care. Yeah. Right. We will succumb to all of the sort of preoccupations of wealth and of a busy culture and all the distractions and addictions that plague and beset anyone. Yeah. So we need God's help to stay awake. We need his help and provision to keep building relationships, because it can be, I don't have to tell you, very disheartening to some of us. You can just take this as a rule of thumb. Where I am and where people in this parish are most in need, they are hardest to love. Mm-hmm. There's a certain insanity in us that it is, I think it's something, a combination of pride and a desire to keep our dignity, but it's more a sort of, we are so vulnerable that we can hardly bear the thought of being touched where we're most tender, or to have hope only to be disappointed again. I once had a young woman said, I just can't trust God or anybody else to love me because I just couldn't bear being disappointed again. And I think there's that kind of tenderness. But nonetheless, we need God's help. We need the help of every other person interested in this kind of work. And I have had glimpses, and I believe you all too, in moments where the people of God have come together with the help of God and accomplish amazing things. Like in this little village that we've been visiting and had a relationship within, we've been able to, with partnerships with other people.
It says Dominican
Republic, yes. Boma. You have to walk into this little village. We've built a school. With the Peace Corps, we've built a water system. We've repaired and restored, I would think, at least 35 houses. We've built new houses. We have provided an ongoing feeding program for people, a place for young children and young people who can't really be in school to have some technical training, agricultural help. I could just keep going. A church emerged and they planted a church. They now often are orchestrating what we do when we come there, and we go to other villages up in the mountains and begin to repeat what's been done there. And a lot of that is not due to a person or a church, but a coalition formed with Dominicans and a lot of American.
And a coalition over a long haul.
Long haul.
Multiple years.
But profound things can happen. And I would love to see that happen in Wilmore. And Andy, you are one of the point persons for that very thing. So we appreciate you and we want to join with you. And it's an honor to be in partnership with you.
That's good. That's good.
What advice would you give to other youth ministers or other leaders of churches?
I've played the role of senior pastor, associate pastor, and youth pastor over the years. Well, it's for sure that. And so I guess I would say, if I was speaking to a youth pastor, do the best you possibly can to with great honor and respect, talk to your senior associates and share your heart with them. And Then as a senior pastor, I would talk to my senior pastor brothers and sisters and say to you all that there's an aspect of resistance you will undoubtedly find within your congregation. Nonetheless,
Why do they resist?
Step forward. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, I think, for most folks, or that's my interpretation at least, when any number of things, and I think the interesting thing, we talk a lot about race, we talk a lot about ethnicity, we talk a lot even about gender, but the biggest divide that I have observed is economic. And that's where people really, for whatever reason, begin to get real uncomfortable when the economic gradations happen within a congregation, and they need to happen within a congregation. If we're going to be representative of the community around us, then we need to have all sort of strata within our congregations. And we as pastors, we as youth pastors, need to be bold in that and be courageous in leading that charge, and not quietly or passively, but keeping the gates closed for certain folks, finding ways to just kind of make it uncomfortable. We need to keep our arms open, and again, it's not without its pushback, it's not without its difficulties, but that's the call that we have at the most basic level, and we need to stay at that. It's not a popular thing, but it's an incredibly important kingdom thing.
And as you said before,
the final exam
is a necessity for our maturity.
It is.
For young people's maturity, but also for all of our maturity further into the faith and further into what it means to live out the kingdom of God. And the reference that Hule said of when it comes down to Judgment Day,
right.
Did you care for
Absolutely.
those who were hungry, those who needed shelter, those who were naked? So
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.